This video is sponsored by NVIDIA. This place will soon contain over 600 of the biggest Blender nerds in the world, including me. And although I can't wait for 3 whole days of Blender talks and catching up with some of my friends, I'm not just here to chit chat and relax. It's impossible to see all the talks since there's over 90 of them in less than 72 hours. Crazy. So I had prepared a meticulous schedule to see all the talks I thought were interesting. And I failed miserably. Because as it turns out, seeing all my friends, meeting new artists, and saying hello to a bunch of you takes a ton of time. Not to worry though, as I still caught plenty of talks in another 3 days of Blender-filled glory. As is tradition, Mr. Blender himself, Ton Roosendaal, kicked off the event with an enlightening talk about copyright. Because guess what? All the big companies want to use Blender nowadays, as it's so good, of course. But they're scared that Blender's open source license will force them to give away their stuff for free too. Which of course isn't the case, as Ton explains very well. If it were, that would be insane, right? His talk also went over some of Blender's 2022 highlights, like the fact that the Blender Foundation now has over 50 people under contract, and that makes it a pretty big company actually. And not only that, Blender was downloaded over 15 million times in 2022, not including everyone who uses an ad blocker or disables cookies, meaning the real number is probably closer to 20 or even 30 million downloads, which is absolutely insane and mind-blowing to me. And as always, the dev team never stands still and is currently working on a lot more interesting things like Eevee Next, Blender 4.0, and a GPU-based compositor, which means 2024 is going to be an amazing year for Blender. Now, last year Ton spoke about the looming presence of AI in his opening talk, so it was no surprise to see several AI-related talks this year. I know a lot of you are fed up with AI and afraid it will make being a 3D artist irrelevant. I get that, really. But the talks at this year's conference go to show that professionals and companies find good uses for AI and use it as a tool to support human creativity. I found the talk about AI copyright by Paul Killer particularly interesting because, as he stated,
copyright is entirely unfit to solve this issue.
And although AI copyright is indeed one of those topics that will need a lot of discussion in the future, there's also tons of AI tools that only serve to help you as an artist. Just like today's sponsor, NVIDIA's AI tools. Because did you know that if you have an NVIDIA GeForce RTX GPU, there's a good chance you're already using AI in Blender? I've mentioned it in my faster rendering video before, but if you have an RTX GPU, Blender allows you to enable optics as your cycles render device. You can do this in your system preferences, and in my experience, it's significantly faster than CUDA, and it's not only faster renders, but also better and faster denoising, as you can also have Blender use the AI accelerated optics for image denoising, which you can find over here. It's crazy good and will allow you to render your scenes at significantly lower sample rates, and that's not just an ad. This all happens right on the NVIDIA RTX GPU, in my case a GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. Aside from raw rendering power, you can use AI-assisted tools in apps like Adobe Substance, Unreal Engine, NVIDIA Omniverse, DaVinci Resolve, OBS, and more, all to save yourself time and make some of the tedious parts of your workflow a lot faster. But here's what I really found surprising. NVIDIA RTX GPUs have AI-accelerated benefits in basically all the different ways you use your Windows PC. In gaming, thanks to NVIDIA DLSS, watching videos thanks to RTX Video Super Resolution, AI-powered noise and background removal thanks to NVIDIA Broadcast, and a whole lot more. If you want to learn more about how AI can impact all the ways you're using your PC, check out the link in the description. Oh, and if you'd like to get your hands on some sweet new tech that can enable AI tools like these, make sure to check out NVIDIA's socials for their amazing #AI-on-RTX giveaways every 2 weeks. Thank you so much to NVIDIA for sponsoring this video and making sure I can provide these to you guys for free. Just like last year, I was blown away by the diversity of people attending the conference, and even more so by the diversity of how Blender is used. There's obvious use cases like games, movies, animations, and assets, but there's also very unique ones like stop motion animation with 3D printed parts done in Blender, drone shows, simulating biological cells, shoe creation, and even having Blender control actual real-world robots. I think this is really important because this diverse group of people with their unique interests creates an ecosystem for Blender that helps development on all aspects of the software. The community experimenting and pushing Blender to its limits shifts the boundary of what it can do, allows for new tool creation, and ensures a healthy future for Blender to come. That's what I love about Blender. Therefore, I think it's safe to say that last year's goals of slowly becoming the industry standard have now sort of shifted to maintaining the adoption of Blender as a default tool in many pipelines, as for many people, Blender already has become that industry standard software. With over 90 talks given during these 3 days, here's some that inspired me, taught me new things, and completely blew my mind. I've put links to all the full videos in the description if you want to check out the entire thing. Starting on day 1, the guys from PolyPerfect went into how to make money with Blender by creating low poly assets. I think it's extremely valuable for those of you that want to make a living with Blender, and they go over all the aspects you need to set up a successful brand within the industry. It truly is a must-watch. I've been slow on the Geometry Nodes content, I know. Sorry. Luckily, someone way better at it than me, Daniel Bystad, gave a talk again this year on Blender's new Geometry Nodes based grooming system. And not just a quick one either, no, a full 40-minute tutorial. Check it out. Finally, on day 1, I really liked Henk Kok's talk on drone shows.
What?
No, that's not a sus thing to say. That's a Dutch last name, and translated it means chef. Anyways, Henk goes over how he uses Blender to create drone shows for the actual real world, making sure drones maintain certain speeds, patterns, and distances. It was really cool seeing Blender being used for something so unique. Day 1 turned out to be pretty amazing, and I had so much fun watching the talks and catching up with everybody for the first time in a year. But day 2 was around the corner, jam-packed with even better talks. Day 2 started off with probably my favorite talk during this entire conference. My friend Polyfjord gave a really inspiring tutorial on the photorealism mindset. I won't spoil it too much, but he goes over what questions you need to ask yourself
instead of why doesn't this look real, which I think is the wrong question,
to make better, more realistic results in Blender, and has a very fun and unique approach in achieving this. This was absolutely inspiring to me, and actually a reason for me to start diving a lot deeper in cinematography, so you might be able to expect a little bit more about that from me in the near future. Next up, we have an inspiring talk by, well, I won't butcher her name, so she can introduce herself.
I'm Ewa Wierbik-Ząbka, I'm from Poland.
She shows her workflows and thoughts on working in Blender in her daily grind in creating realistic and beautiful assets. I think it's a great showcase of the quality stuff you can create in Blender. Third, we have another Geometry Nodes talk by Merten, whom you probably know as Bad Normals. He did an amazing introduction to simulation nodes by creating the famous game Flappy Bird all inside of Blender. Sounds difficult? Well, you can do it in under 50 minutes, so apparently it's not, really. If you're still wrapping your head around this new Geometry Nodes feature, like I am, check out this video for a fun introduction. Like I said, day 2 was packed. So next, we have Creative Shrimp founder Gleb Alexandrov's talk on photorealistic environments and photogrammetry. Very interesting stuff, and he really shows the power of scanning environments to create quick, hyper-real, and detailed environments. Finally, we close the day off with one of those talks that kinda leaves you with your jaw on your knees in awe and a bit of jealousy. Preston Mutanga, currently 15 years old, shows how he's been making Lego animations in Blender about awesome things like Spider-Man and Stranger Things, which is actually one of my favorite shows. But eventually, it even landed him an actual job working on the latest Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie. Insanely good, great, enthusiastic kid with talent and passion. He's absolutely one to keep on the lookout for the future, and I wish I had half his skills. And so with some more drinks, laughter, and good food, day 2 is a wrap, and we're already heading for the final day of BCon 23. Sharon Snow, professional animator, kicked off day 3 with a really fun and inspiring talk on Grease Pencil. I loved how she not only showed Blender's unique tools for creating 2.5D art, but also went into finding your passion, inspiration, and knowing your self-worth as an artist.
I think we all remember being kids and opening up MS Paint for the first time and doodling something like this, and there was no rhyme or reason as to why we did something like that. It was just fun, and that's the kind of feeling that I'd like to preserve when we're creating.
It really is a must-see if you make art. Following Sharon, we have Aman Preet, who's a game artist for AAA games. In this 50-minute workflow tutorial, he goes over all the things you need to know to create high-quality game assets. Stuff like UVs, texel density, texturing, and asset reusability are just some of the topics he covers. Now, you remember Preston from maybe a minute ago? Well, he wasn't the only Spider-Man artist in the house, as there were 3 more artists who worked on a lot of the ink line effects for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So yeah, it's true. Blender was used to make a Spider-Man movie, not in just one way, but multiple. I mean, how cool is that, right? So this talk goes over the power of Grease Pencil in artistic freedom to create amazing effects using ink lines, smearing, and other animation techniques. It's truly another Blender Power showcase. The final talk I want to highlight is by Guido Dekker, as he goes over some awesome VFX and how his studio uses Blender to achieve creative freedom in their projects. Pretty inspiring works and a good insight in the professional workflow for a VFX director. And with that, we've wrapped up day 3 of the 2023 Blender conference, and we have to wait another year for the next one. For me, just like last year, it was an amazing event and experience, although I must say I might have liked 2022 even better. But maybe you should judge that for yourself by checking out this video of last year's conference next.